"Get on your knees," the officer ordered, but Danielle Brooks was not looking at his badge, his hand, or the cold authority in his voice. She was looking past him, through the windshield of a parked SUV, at the terrified face of a little girl hiding low in the back seat. The garage beneath the Hawthorne Center was nearly dark, lit by one flickering strip of fluorescent bulbs and the weak red glow of an exit sign 40 feet away. Rainwater hissed down the concrete ramp behind her, carrying the smell of wet pavement, motor oil, and rust into the hollow space. 3 white officers had formed a half-circle around her, cutting off the elevator, the stairwell, and the only open lane leading outside. Sergeant Grant Mercer stood in the middle, broad-shouldered and certain, while Officer Ryan Cole watched Danielle with the impatient smile of a man who had already decided how the night would end. The youngest officer, Noah Bennett, remained 2 steps behind them, silent, his eyes moving between Danielle and the darkened security cameras overhead. "I asked why I'm being detained," Danielle said. Her voice was quiet, almost gentle, but it carried cleanly through the garage. Mercer tilted his head as though her calmness offended him. "You were seen entering a restricted area." Danielle kept both hands visible. "I used a guest access card. The building manager is expecting me." "People say a lot of things when they get caught somewhere they don't belong," Cole replied. The words settled into the cold air, heavier than they should have been. Danielle had heard that tone before, in airports, hotel lobbies, office towers, and once outside her own home. It was the tone people used when they wanted their assumptions to sound like evidence. She did not argue. Instead, she measured the space between Mercer and the concrete pillar, noted the reflection of Noah's face in a side mirror, and listened to the uneven rhythm of Cole's breathing. 12 years of reading rooms had taught her that the loudest person was rarely the greatest danger. The frightened one was. "Turn on your body cameras," she said. Noah glanced down at his uniform. Mercer did not. "You don't give orders here." "That wasn't an order," Danielle replied. "It was a reasonable request." Somewhere behind the parked cars, a phone vibrated once and went still. Danielle's eyes shifted toward the sound for less than a second. Marcus Hill was supposed to meet her beside the elevator at 9:15. He was 11 minutes late. That mattered. He had called her that afternoon with a voice so strained she could hear him fighting for every breath. He said he had found something hidden in the building records, something involving complaints that had disappeared, camera footage that had been erased, and names that kept repeating. He had asked for Danielle because he trusted her, not because he knew what she had once done for a living. Now Mercer took one slow step closer. "Put your bag on the ground." Danielle looked again at the little girl behind the glass. The child's hands were pressed over her mouth. "There's someone in that vehicle," Danielle said. Cole gave a short laugh. "Trying to distract us?" "No," she answered. "Trying to make sure everyone leaves safely." Noah finally followed her gaze, and the color drained from his face. Mercer did not turn around. His attention remained fixed on Danielle, on her plain coat, her worn leather bag, and the assumption that a black woman standing alone in a dark garage had no power, no witness, and nowhere to go. Danielle slowly lowered her bag to the concrete. Then she straightened, met Mercer's eyes, and understood with sudden certainty that these men had not cornered her by mistake. Danielle kept her eyes on Mercer while the little girl remained hidden inside the sport utility vehicle, her face barely visible through the rain-streaked glass. The silence inside the garage had changed. It was no longer empty. It was listening. Noah Bennett shifted his weight and looked toward the vehicle again, but Sergeant Mercer lifted one hand without turning. "Eyes forward," he said. The command was meant for Noah, yet it landed on everyone. Danielle noticed the young officer obey, though not completely. His shoulders had tightened. His breathing had shortened. He had seen the child, and now he could not pretend that this was a simple stop. Danielle had learned long ago that fear revealed people faster than anger did. At 4:30 that afternoon, she had been sitting in a quiet room at the Harbor Veterans Center, across from a former Army medic named Luis Ortega. Luis had not slept in 3 nights. Every time a delivery truck backfired outside, his hands curled against his knees. Danielle had sat 6 feet away, giving him space, speaking only when his breathing began to race. "You are here," she had told him. "The floor is solid. The door is open. Nothing is closing in." She never told veterans to be strong. Most of them had spent years hearing that word used like a locked door. Instead, she reminded them that asking for help was not surrender. It was a decision to remain. By 7 o'clock, Luis had finally called his sister and agreed to go home with her. Danielle stayed until their car disappeared from the parking lot. That was when Marcus Hill called. His voice came through low and uneven. Marcus had served overseas before a roadside explosion ended his military career. Now he managed security systems at Hawthorne Center, a polished downtown office tower where private firms occupied the upper floors and ordinary workers used the service entrances below. "I found something," he told her. Records they thought were gone. Danielle had asked what kind of records. Marcus paused long enough for her to hear an elevator bell behind him. Complaints. Missing footage. Names of officers. The same names, over and over. Then his voice dropped. "I do not trust the police with this. I trust you." Danielle had told him to meet her in the underground garage at 9:15, near the west elevator, where the cameras covered every entrance. She had arrived early, as she always did. She had checked the stairwell, the emergency doors, the ceiling cameras, and the parked cars without appearing to look at any of them. It was habit, not fear. She had spent years entering rooms where one unnoticed detail could decide whether everyone walked out safely. But when she saw that the camera above the west elevator had been turned toward the wall, she knew Marcus had been right to worry. Now, standing between 3 officers and a frightened child, Danielle understood that Marcus was not late because of traffic. Someone had reached him first. Mercer took another step toward her bag. "What is inside?" he asked. Danielle answered without hesitation. "Paperwork, a phone charger, and a bottle of water." Cole smiled thinly. "We will decide that." He moved toward the bag, but Danielle noticed his attention was not on her belongings. It was on the outside pocket, exactly where Marcus would have expected her to carry a storage drive. That small mistake told her everything. They were not searching for stolen property. They were searching for evidence. Danielle lifted her chin slightly. "You knew I was coming," she said. Cole's smile vanished. Noah looked at Mercer. For the first time, the youngest officer seemed less afraid of Danielle than of the men standing beside him. Mercer's expression did not change, but the air around him seemed to tighten. "You are making assumptions," he said. Danielle watched the muscles along his jaw settle into a harder line. Men like Mercer often believed control meant never reacting, yet the body always answered before the mouth did. Cole stopped beside her bag and looked toward his sergeant, waiting for permission he had already been given long before tonight. Noah remained near the lane, close enough to block the exit, far enough to tell himself he was only observing. "She knows too much," Cole said quietly. The words were not meant for Danielle, but the garage carried them anyway. Mercer turned his head just enough to silence him. That was the first clear fracture. Danielle stored it away. "Where is Marcus Hill?" she asked. Noah's eyes moved. Cole's did not. Mercer gave a small, humorless smile. "You should be more concerned about yourself. I am concerned about a man who asked for help and never arrived. Maybe he changed his mind. Marcus does not disappear without calling." Mercer stepped closer until only a few feet separated them. The fluorescent light above him blinked, washing his face in pale intervals. "You seem very certain about a lot of things." Danielle could smell rain on his uniform and the bitter trace of old coffee. "Certainty is not the same as arrogance," she said. "You should learn the difference." Cole let out a low breath through his nose. Noah stared at the floor. For 3 years, Grant Mercer had built a reputation inside the department as the man who handled difficult neighborhoods and difficult people. His reports were always clean. His language was always precise. Whenever a complaint surfaced, the video was incomplete, the witness was unreliable, or the paperwork was misplaced. Supervisors called him effective. Younger officers called him untouchable. Ryan Cole had joined his unit 2 years earlier and learned quickly that loyalty mattered more than questions. Mercer gave him the best assignments, introduced him to the right commanders, and promised that obedience would carry him farther than patience ever could. Noah Bennett had been assigned only 6 weeks ago. He still polished his badge before every shift. He still believed procedure meant protection. Tonight, he was learning how easily procedure could become camouflage. Danielle saw it in the way he kept glancing at Mercer's dark body camera. "Officer Bennett," she said. Noah looked up before he could stop himself. Mercer's eyes narrowed. "Do not speak to him." Danielle continued anyway. "Is your camera recording?" Noah swallowed. "Ma'am, you need to cooperate." "That was not my question." Cole bent down and opened the outer pocket of her bag. He removed a phone charger, a folded envelope, and a small plastic bottle. His movements became faster. He checked the inner pocket, then the side seam, then the bottom. Nothing. The storage drive Marcus had promised was not there. Cole looked at Mercer again, this time with worry. Danielle noticed. "You expected to find something specific," she said. "What was it?" Mercer's voice dropped. "Enough." Somewhere beyond the concrete pillars, a metal door closed with a soft echo. Noah turned toward the sound. Danielle did not. She had already counted the footsteps approaching from the west corridor. One person. Slow pace. Slight drag in the left foot. Marcus had injured that leg during his final deployment. Danielle felt relief rise, then disappear just as quickly. If Marcus was walking toward them, he was either free or being used. Cole stood and gripped the handle of her bag. "You are coming with us." "Under what charge?" "We will sort that out upstairs." Danielle looked toward the shadowed corridor. A figure appeared beneath the red exit light, shoulders bent, one hand pressed against the wall for balance. Marcus Hill stepped into view. His face was pale. His jacket was wet. When he saw Mercer, he stopped. When he saw Danielle, something in his eyes broke open. "Do not give them anything," he said. Mercer turned slowly toward him, and for the first time that night, his calm slipped completely. Mercer moved before Marcus could take another step. "Stay where you are," he said, his voice cutting through the garage with a sharpness that made Noah straighten. Marcus stopped beneath the red glow of the exit sign, one hand still pressed against the wall. Water darkened the shoulders of his jacket, and his breathing sounded strained in the cold concrete space. Danielle did not turn fully toward him. She kept Mercer, Cole, and the child in the sport utility vehicle within the edge of her vision. "Marcus," she said calmly, "are you hurt?" "I am fine," he answered too quickly. Mercer glanced at Cole. It was brief, but Danielle saw it. Marcus had not come down here alone. Someone had followed him, searched him, or frightened him into silence before he reached the garage. "Where is the drive?" Cole asked. The question escaped before Mercer could stop him. Noah looked from Cole to Marcus, confusion hardening into alarm. "What drive?" he asked. No one answered. Danielle let the silence stretch. It was often more useful than accusation. People rushed to fill silence when they feared what it might reveal. Mercer finally faced her again. "Put your hands behind your back." "For what reason?" "Interfering with an investigation." "You have not identified an investigation. You are not in a position to demand explanations." Danielle held his gaze. That is exactly when explanations matter most. Cole stepped closer and reached for her arm, but she shifted half a step, not threatening, only placing herself between him and the vehicle behind her. The movement was so small that Mercer seemed not to notice. Noah did. His eyes followed the angle of her shoulders, then moved to the little girl behind the glass. "Sergeant," he said quietly, "there really is a child in that car." Mercer did not look. "Then she can stay inside." Danielle's voice remained steady. "She is frightened. Lower your voices and move away from the vehicle." Cole gave a humorless laugh. "You still think you are in charge?" "No," Danielle said. "I think adults are responsible for what children are forced to witness." The words landed differently on Noah. His face tightened, and his hand fell away from the front of his uniform. Mercer turned toward him. "Bennett, secure the west entrance." Noah hesitated. "Sergeant, our cameras are off." The garage seemed to contract around them. Cole looked sharply at him. Mercer's expression went still. "That equipment has been malfunctioning all week." "Mine was working at roll call," Noah said. It was barely above a whisper, but it was the first honest thing he had offered since Danielle arrived. Mercer took one measured breath. Do your job. Noah did not move. Danielle lowered her right hand toward the side of her coat, slowly enough that everyone could see the motion. Cole stiffened. Keep your hands up. I am activating my emergency recorder, she said. Do not touch anything, Mercer ordered. Danielle pressed the small button along the edge of her watch. A soft vibration touched her wrist. The recording had begun. The time is 9:28 in the evening, she said clearly. I am in the lower garage of Hawthorne Center with Marcus Hill, Sergeant Grant Mercer, Officer Ryan Cole, Officer Noah Bennett, and a minor child inside a parked vehicle. I have asked why I am being detained. No lawful reason has been provided. Cole stared at her watch as though it had changed the shape of the room. Mercer stepped closer, his voice low. Turn that off. No, it was the first time Danielle had answered him with a single word. Marcus drew a breath from the corridor. The real drive is already gone, he said. Mercer turned toward him. Danielle saw the mistake before anyone else did. His attention left the child. Cole moved toward the bag. Noah looked toward the exit. 3 directions. 3 separate fears. Danielle remained still in the center of them, not because she had nowhere to go, but because she had finally learned what each man was most afraid of losing. Mercer's fear revealed itself first. Already gone where? He demanded, turning toward Marcus with such sudden force that even Cole flinched. Marcus remained beneath the red exit light, one hand gripping the wall, his face pale but steady. Somewhere you cannot erase it, he said. Cole dropped Danielle's bag and took 2 quick steps toward him. Danielle moved sideways, placing herself between Cole and the corridor without raising her hands or changing her expression. Stay back, she said. Cole stopped, more surprised by her certainty than by the words themselves. Mercer pointed toward Danielle's watch. Turn off the recorder and move away from him. The soft vibration against her wrist had ended, but the device was still transmitting. Danielle could not know whether the signal had reached its destination through the concrete levels above them. She only knew that every second mattered. Officer Bennett, she said, keeping her voice clear, you have now heard Sergeant Mercer demand that a witness surrender evidence without identifying any warrant, charge, or active case. Noah's face tightened. Do not involve me, he said, but the request sounded less like authority than fear. You are already involved, Danielle replied. The only decision left is what you do next. Mercer stepped closer until his shadow crossed her shoes. You think a recording protects you? His voice had lost its polished calm. People hear what the report tells them to hear. Danielle looked at the dark body camera fixed to his chest. That may have worked before. A muscle moved in his cheek. Cole reached for her wrist, but Danielle drew her hand back and turned just enough to keep distance between them. She did not threaten him. She did not need to. Do not touch the device, she said. You have no right to record us, Cole answered. I am standing in a public access garage while 3 officers refuse to explain why I cannot leave. You cannot leave because we said so. The sentence echoed through the concrete chamber. Noah looked up sharply. Danielle saw the instant he understood how it would sound to anyone listening. Mercer understood it too. He turned on Cole. Stop talking. Behind Danielle, the little girl shifted inside the vehicle. A small shoe touched the window, then disappeared. Danielle heard a faint sob through the glass. Her attention moved there for one heartbeat. That was enough for Mercer to notice. You care about that child, he said. The softness in his voice was colder than his anger. Then do not make this more difficult. Danielle slowly faced him again. Something inside her went quiet. Do not use her, she said. Mercer lifted both hands as if offering reason. Nobody is using anyone. Cooperate, and everyone goes home. Marcus cooperated, Danielle said. Did he go home? Silence answered. Marcus lowered his eyes. Noah looked toward the wet sleeve of Marcus's jacket, then at Mercer. The picture was becoming too complete to ignore. Cole bent toward Danielle's bag again and searched the lining with hurried fingers. He found the folded envelope and opened it. Inside were medical forms for Luis Ortega, an appointment card, and a handwritten note thanking Danielle for staying with him through the longest night of his life. Cole stared at the paper, disappointed. "Nothing," he muttered. Mercer's eyes returned to Marcus. "Where did you send it?" Marcus said nothing. Mercer took one step toward the corridor. Danielle blocked the path. "Move." No, the word landed harder this time. Noah's hand rose toward his body camera. His thumb hovered over the power switch. Mercer saw it. "Bennett," he warned. Noah's breathing became audible. Rain hammered the ramp outside, filling the garage with a distant roar. Danielle could feel every person waiting for someone else to decide what happened next. Then Noah pressed the button on his camera. A small green light appeared on his chest. Mercer stared at it. Cole went still. Noah swallowed and spoke into the silence. "The time is 9:31 in the evening. I am activating my body camera because I believe department procedure is no longer being followed." For the first time since Danielle entered the garage, Mercer looked uncertain. Then every overhead light went out. Darkness swallowed the garage so completely that the rain became the only thing anyone could trust. It drummed against the entrance ramp, rushed through a clogged gutter, and fell in slow drops from a pipe somewhere near the west wall. Danielle did not move. Around her, 3 different breathing patterns separated themselves from the blackness. Cole was closest, fast and shallow, no more than 6 feet to her right. Noah stood farther back near the open lane, his breath controlled but uneven. Mercer was directly ahead, silent for 2 seconds too long, trying to decide whether the loss of light had weakened his control or given him cover. Behind Danielle, the little girl whimpered inside the vehicle. "Everyone stay still," Danielle said. Her voice was low and steady, shaped for the child rather than the officers. "The lights will return. Nobody needs to panic." "Do not tell us what to do," Mercer answered from the darkness. His words were quieter now. Without his face, his uniform, and the hard white light above him, authority had become only a voice in a room. Danielle heard fabric shift near his belt. "Keep your hands away from your equipment," she said. "There is a child less than 10 feet behind me." Noah spoke immediately. "Sergeant, she is right." Cole muttered something under his breath and took one step. The sole of his shoe scraped across loose grit. Danielle turned toward the sound. "Officer Cole, stop moving." He froze. "How do you know where I am?" he asked. Danielle did not answer. Years earlier, she had stood inside a windowless training structure in North Carolina while 12 experienced soldiers waited for instructions they assumed would involve speed, strength, and precision. She had switched off the lights and allowed silence to unsettle them. Then she had asked what they could hear. Most named doors, footsteps, or breathing. Only one noticed the frightened civilian volunteer standing in the corner. That was the lesson. Training was not about becoming the most dangerous person in a room. It was about recognizing who needed protection before fear made the decision for you. Now Danielle listened to the small movements around her and felt that same stillness settle through her body. Her pulse did not disappear. Courage had never meant the absence of fear. It meant refusing to let fear choose the next action. "Marcus," she said, "stay beside the wall." "I am here," he answered. His voice sounded weaker than before, but present. "Noah, keep your camera running." "It is still recording," Noah said. A green light blinked faintly through the darkness, no brighter than a distant firefly. Mercer noticed it too. "Turn it off," he ordered. "No, Sergeant." Noah's reply trembled, yet it did not break. The word seemed to change the shape of the garage. Cole exhaled sharply. Mercer took a slow step toward Noah. Danielle heard the movement and shifted into the open space between them. "Stop," she said. "You cannot see me." "I do not need to see you." Rainwater touched the toe of her shoe and spread across the concrete in a thin cold line. Somewhere above them, the building's backup system clicked once, failed, then clicked again. The little girl began to cry more openly. Danielle softened her voice. "Sweetheart, you are doing well. Stay low and keep the doors locked. Help is coming." "How can you promise that?" Cole asked. Because my recorder transmitted before the power failed, Danielle said. The silence that followed was immediate. Mercer's breathing changed at last. It was small, almost invisible, but Danielle heard it. You are lying, he said. Then you have nothing to worry about. A dim emergency lamp flickered to life near the elevator, spreading weak amber light across the pillars. Faces emerged slowly from the darkness. Noah stood with his camera glowing. Marcus remained against the wall. Cole stared at Danielle as if seeing her for the first time. Mercer looked toward the ramp, not at her, and Danielle understood that the balance had shifted. He was no longer thinking about how to control the people in the garage. He was wondering who might already be on the way. The first sound from the ramp was not a siren. It was the low growl of an engine climbing down through the rain. Mercer heard it and moved toward the exit, but Danielle shifted one step into his path. Stay where you are, she said. The amber emergency light cast long shadows across the concrete, turning every face into something half-hidden. Mercer looked at her with open disbelief. You do not give me orders. Then consider it a warning. Cole reached for Danielle's bag again, but Noah stepped between them. Do not touch it, he said. His voice was stronger now. Cole stared at him. You are throwing away your career. Noah glanced at the green light on his body camera. Maybe I am saving it. The engine grew louder. Tires rolled across wet concrete, then stopped near the entrance. Two dark vehicles appeared beneath the emergency lamps, followed by a white sedan marked with the seal of the state attorney general's office. Mercer's face changed. Not much. Just enough. The muscles around his mouth loosened, and the certainty left his eyes. Captain Rebecca Shaw stepped from the first vehicle with 4 investigators behind her. She was tall, silver-haired, and dressed in a raincoat over her uniform. Her attention moved across the garage in one calm sweep. Marcus against the wall. Noah recording. Cole beside Danielle's open bag. Mercer blocking the lane. The little girl inside the sport utility vehicle. Nobody moves, Shaw said. The words carried without effort. Mercer straightened. Captain, this is a controlled investigation. No, Shaw replied. It became an internal affairs matter 6 minutes ago. Danielle felt the tension around her shift, but she did not relax. The child was still in the vehicle. Marcus was still struggling to remain upright. Cole was still frightened enough to make a poor decision. Shaw looked toward Danielle. Are you Danielle Brooks? Yes. Your emergency transmission reached our office at 9:28. Marcus Hill had already contacted us earlier today and arranged a secure transfer. Mercer turned sharply toward Marcus. You said the drive was gone. Marcus gave a tired nod. It was never in this garage. Shaw raised one hand, and an investigator approached the sport utility vehicle slowly, showing empty palms to the child inside. Another went to Marcus. A third stood near Cole without touching him. The garage filled with quiet, deliberate movement. No shouting. No confusion. Only procedure performed the way it was supposed to be. Mercer looked at Danielle again, trying to rebuild the authority that had fallen away from him. She interfered with officers and refused lawful commands. Shaw's gaze moved to Noah. Officer Bennett. Noah swallowed. The whole night seemed to rest inside that breath. There was no stated charge, he said. Sergeant Mercer ordered our cameras off. Officer Cole searched her bag without consent. They were looking for a storage drive connected to prior complaints. Cole stared at him as if betrayed. Mercer said nothing. Shaw looked back at Danielle. Did they threaten you? Danielle chose her words carefully. They tried to control what could be seen and heard. The answer settled over the garage more heavily than accusation. Marcus pushed away from the wall. Tell them who she is, he said. Mercer gave a bitter laugh. Why should that matter? It should not, Danielle replied. That is the point. Marcus looked toward Shaw. She spent 12 years training special mission units in threat assessment, restraint, and civilian protection. Cole's face went blank. Noah's eyes widened. Mercer stared at Danielle as though the woman before him had changed, though nothing about her had. The plain coat was the same. The worn leather bag was the same. Her hands were still open at her sides. Shaw studied her with quiet recognition. Fort Bragg. Danielle nodded once. 12 years. Mercer looked toward the child, then toward Noah's camera, then back at Danielle. At last he understood. She had known every exit, every movement, and every mistake from the moment they surrounded her. She could have exposed their fears sooner. She could have humiliated them. Instead, she had protected the child, preserved the evidence, and given Noah time to choose the truth. The rear door of the sport utility vehicle opened, and the little girl stepped out beneath the investigator's umbrella. She ran toward Danielle and wrapped both arms around her waist. Danielle lowered one hand gently to the child's shoulder. Mercer watched in silence. The woman he had mistaken for powerless had been the safest person in the garage all along. The little girl held tightly to Danielle's coat until a woman came running down the ramp beneath a black umbrella, her face pale with fear. "Emily," she cried. The child turned, and relief broke across her small face. Her mother gathered her close, thanking Danielle through tears that the rain nearly hid. Danielle only nodded and told her that Emily had been brave. Across the garage, Captain Rebecca Shaw spoke quietly with the investigators while Mercer and Cole stood several feet apart under separate supervision. The distance between them seemed wider than the entire concrete level. Noah remained near his patrol car, his body camera still recording, his hands hanging stiffly at his sides. He looked younger than he had an hour earlier. Not innocent, but awake. Shaw approached Danielle after Emily and her mother were escorted toward the elevator. "We recovered the files Marcus sent," she said. "There are 23 complaints, 7 missing recordings, and internal reports that were changed after submission." Marcus closed his eyes briefly, as if hearing the number spoken aloud made the burden real. "I kept thinking I needed more proof," he said. "You needed a safe way to release what you had," Danielle replied. "Those are not the same thing." Shaw looked toward Mercer. "There will be a full investigation. He and Officer Cole are being placed on immediate administrative leave. Their access to department systems has been suspended." Mercer heard her. His shoulders remained square, but the confidence that once filled the garage had drained away. He looked at Noah and spoke with the cold familiarity of a mentor addressing a disappointing student. "Tell them she resisted. Tell them the situation was unclear. You know how reports work." Noah stared at him. Rainwater rolled from the edge of the ramp and gathered in a shallow stream between their shoes. "Yes," Noah said. "I know how reports work." Mercer's expression sharpened. For one moment, the old command returned to his voice. "Then protect your team." Noah looked at Danielle, then at Marcus, then at the green light glowing on his chest. He slowly removed his badge from his uniform. The metal caught the amber emergency light before he placed it on the hood of the patrol car. "A team does not ask you to lie about an innocent person," he said. Cole turned away. Mercer's face became unreadable. Shaw watched Noah without interrupting. "I followed orders after I knew something was wrong," he continued. "I blocked the exit. I stayed silent when the cameras were turned off. I told myself I was new and did not understand the situation, but I understood enough." His voice shook, though every word remained clear. "Danielle Brooks did not threaten us. She asked lawful questions. Sergeant Mercer knew she was meeting Marcus Hill, and Officer Cole searched her belongings for evidence they had no authority to take." The garage fell quiet again, but this silence did not belong to fear. It belonged to truth finally given room to stand. Shaw nodded to one of the investigators, who began recording Noah's formal statement. Mercer looked at Danielle. "You think this makes you better than us?" he asked. Danielle met his eyes. "No. I think what you chose tonight made you responsible for what happens next." There was no anger in her voice. That seemed to disturb him more than anger would have. Noah lowered his head. "I am sorry," he said to Danielle. "I should have acted sooner." She studied him for a long moment. "An apology does not erase what happened." "I know." "Good," she said. "Then do not ask the people you failed to make you feel better. Tell the truth when it costs you something. That is where change begins." Noah looked at the badge resting on the wet metal. I do not know whether I deserve to wear it again. Danielle followed his gaze. That decision belongs to the investigation. What you do after tonight belongs to you. Shaw stepped beside her and offered a clean handkerchief for the rain on her face. Danielle accepted it, then handed it to Marcus instead. He gave a tired smile. Behind them, investigators placed sealed evidence containers into the white sedan. No one applauded. No one celebrated. Justice had not arrived like thunder. It had entered. Quietly through a recording light, a frightened man's evidence, and one young officer's decision to stop protecting the wrong people. By the time Danielle stepped out of the garage, the rain had softened to a silver mist over the city. Marcus walked beside her with an investigator supporting one arm, his sealed statement already on its way to the Attorney General's office. Behind them, Sergeant Grant Mercer and Officer Ryan Cole were escorted toward separate vehicles, no longer speaking for each other, no longer protected by the silence they had depended on. Noah Bennett remained beneath the amber light near the patrol car. His badge still rested on the hood, covered in tiny beads of rain. Danielle paused at the bottom of the ramp and looked back. Noah did not ask her to forgive him. He simply stood there and accepted the weight of what he had allowed. 3 months later, the investigation released its findings. Mercer was dismissed from the department and charged with evidence tampering, obstruction, and misconduct connected to multiple unlawful detentions. Cole lost his position and agreed to testify about the altered reports and missing recordings. The 23 complaints Marcus had uncovered were reopened, and families who had once been ignored were finally given hearings. Noah received a suspension and was required to testify publicly. His badge was not returned immediately. He spent those months working with investigators, naming every order he had followed and every moment when he had chosen comfort over courage. Some people called him a traitor. Others called him brave. Danielle called him accountable. Hawthorne Center replaced its private security system, restored every camera, and created a protected reporting channel for workers who witnessed misconduct. Marcus became its first independent safety director. He accepted the position only after insisting that janitors, drivers, guards, and maintenance workers receive the same right to report danger as executives on the top floor. Emily and her mother visited the Harbor Veterans Center one Saturday morning. The little girl carried a drawing made with blue and gold crayons. It showed a dark garage, a bright doorway, and a woman standing between 3 tall shadows and a small car. Above the woman, Emily had written 2 words in careful letters, "She stayed." Danielle placed the picture on the wall near the room where Luis Ortega met with other veterans each week. She never displayed her old certificates or military commendations. The drawing mattered more. 1 year after the night in the garage, Noah came to the center wearing plain clothes. The department had offered him a chance to return under supervision after he completed ethics training and community service. He held his badge inside a small wooden box but did not open it. "I wanted you to know that I testified in every case," he said. "Even the ones no one could prove." Danielle studied him for a moment. "Why are you telling me?" "Because that night, I thought courage meant standing with my team." He looked down at the box. "Now I think it means standing where the truth leaves you alone." Danielle nodded once. "Then remember that when nobody is recording." Noah left without asking for approval. Danielle watched him cross the sidewalk beneath the morning sun. Inside the center, Luis was helping Marcus adjust a chair for the weekly support group. Emily's drawing moved slightly in the breeze from an open window. The garage had taught everyone a different lesson. Mercer learned that authority without integrity eventually collapses. Cole learned that loyalty cannot protect a lie forever. Noah learned that doing the right thing late still carries a cost. Marcus learned that evidence needs courage before it can become justice. Danielle had known the deepest lesson long before any of them. Strength was never proven by how easily a person could overpower someone else. It was proven in the moment power became available and mercy remained a choice. She reached up and straightened Emily's picture. Then she stepped away, leaving the sunlight to rest across the words "she stayed." And somewhere beyond that quiet room, another person was deciding whether to remain silent or speak. What would you have done if telling the truth meant losing the people standing beside you?